Kukan is the first American documentary that was awarded an Oscar in 1942. And it was produced by Li Ling Ai, a Chinese woman from Hawaii. But you've never heard of Li Ling Ai before because she was not properly credited for her work. So her history was lost. And you've never heard of the film probably because the film was also lost. For almost 60 years, no one had seen it until Robin Leung, the director of Finding Kukan, went on an 8-year quest, a search, to uncover the truth about Li Ling Ai's story. Was she really the producer of the film as she claimed? And what happened to the film? And Robin, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but Robin found what is likely the only remaining print of the film Kukan, which even the Academy for Motion Picture Arts and Sciences didn't have a copy of.
Interesting. I gotta see this movie now. Oh, wow. So, where do you come in with this now?
I am the editor of Finding Kukan and also writer and producer. I met Robin some 5-6 years ago. And we were at a Women in Film event, and she introduced herself, told me like 2 sentences about her film and the story of this woman, the mystery of this woman. And I said, I'm hooked. I totally want to edit this film. And so that's when I came on board as editor and started to help her shape the story into the feature documentary it is now.
So obviously you know film history and filmology. Some of the best women editors in general have been women, I should say.
Editing is kind of the kitchen of filmmaking. So it's always been a place where women have been comfortable and accepted. So yeah, it's the behind the scenes kind of dirty work of filmmaking, and women are good at it.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that?
Why do I think that? You know, that's a good question. I mean, it's not that men aren't good editors. There's so many fantastic men editors, but I think women bring a level of persistence, perhaps, to uncovering, you know, just like a dogged determination of digging until you get it right, you know, and I think it's a different sensibility of storytelling, you know, sometimes. But, you know, I don't know. Everything that I start to say goes, oh, am I being sexist? I don't want to be sexist. So.
No, you're not. Martin Scorsese's editor, Thelma.
Yes, Thelma Schoonmaker is like fantastic. Yes. Yes, that's right.
Talk about more about this film because I didn't know about it. Just when I think I know everything, someone comes and brings something that I've not seen that gets me upset. So now I need to see this movie.
You do need to see this movie. So, you know, Robin went on an 8-year search to figure out what was the true story behind the making of this film, Kukan. She had read just literally one paragraph in a book, in a memoir that Li Ling Ai had written about her parents, that she had made this documentary. And she was like, how can that be true? Because if a Chinese woman from Hawaii had made a film that won an Oscar, I would know about it. Right? It's like as an active working documentarian in Hawaii. So how can that be true? So that question wouldn't leave her alone. She had to find out the truth. So she started digging and she started contacting relatives, anyone she could find who had known Li Ling Ai when she was alive and could maybe help fill in the blanks. And so that quest, you know, Robin really became like a history detective. Because no one had ever written a book about Li Ling Ai. No one, you know, she had to go back to original sources and read personal correspondences, letters that had been archived in libraries around the country, articles that were in microfiche, boxes, you know, go through people's boxes of letters that were stashed in their closets where they had saved letters that Li Ling Ai had written them. I mean, the whole story was revealed through these little pieces of paper that were tucked away all over the country. And she chased the story down and also found the descendants, which eventually led her to the film.
What do you expect the audience to get out of seeing this movie when they get a chance to see it?
You know, I think it raises a big question about whose history gets recorded in America and whose history doesn't. And the truth is that, you know, history, naturally, is often told from the perspective of the rich and the powerful and the famous. And women's history, far less told. And then women of color history, even less than that. And so I think it's super important when we find these histories to shine a light on them and tell these stories. And I think that an audience, like for me personally, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I never knew the story of this amazing woman who in the 30s produced a film that ended up winning an Oscar. And had I had her as a role model, how would that have affected me as a young person, as somebody, wanting to break into film and needing women role models to look up to? And so I think that, by telling the story of Li Ling Ai, we can influence future generations of young filmmakers who can look at her and look at her story and go, wow, if she did it, I could do it too.
What can you say without giving too much away about the Oscar?
The Finding Kukan tells this story. Kukan was Kukan was a landmark film in 1941 when it was released nationwide. It was the first time that frontline wartime journalism of that type had been done, and it was also the first color film made in China. And so Americans had not seen China in color. They had never seen color moving pictures, Kodachrome, which was a brand new technology at that time. And they also had never seen, there's a phenomenal bombing scene that cinematographer Ray Scott captured, the bombing of Chongqing. And it was, in the New York Times, they called it awesome when they saw that footage. It really altered people's perception of the war that was coming, because America was on the brink of getting ready to join World War II, and so people were very much had their eye on Asia and the war that was going on in Asia, and with fears that we would eventually be drawn into it. And so for all those reasons that Ray Scott put himself in harm's way to document the war from the everyday Chinese person's perspective. It was something that just hadn't been done before. The kinds of films that were being called documentaries prior to that were more travelogues, and it was a different kind of filmmaking that anyone had ever seen, and so it was very exciting, and that's why the Academy decided to honor the film.
Do you know what studio had it on?
This was not a studio film. It was made independently by two independent filmmakers who they themselves had never made a film before. Ray had been a photojournalist, so he was a still photographer, and he, and really worked as a stringer mostly. And so when Li Ling Ai met him, she felt like he could capture the story, and so she raised the money to send him to China to document the China story during the war.
Give me social media.
So it's at Finding Kukan on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook as well, at Finding Kukan, Kukan. And we're also findingkukan.com.